So you want to start your own clothing brand. Maybe it's been on your mind for a couple of days, maybe a couple of months. But today, I'm going to show you how I started mine. Everything from using Photoshop for the first time to selling on my first drop and where I'm at today. So without further ado, let's get into it. So initially, you're going to need some sort of capital. This could be a couple $100 to a couple thousand, whatever you want to spend with. But I'd recommend, honestly, no more than a couple hundred. You should be fine. I first got started with clothes and more specifically streetwear back when I was in high school. I've always been very entrepreneurial minded and started reselling clothes like Supreme, Kith, and Bape and Nike, all the popular shoes, all the popular clothes to make for profit. And it was there that I really began to learn the market and understand how things worked and why they worked. And so when I was a freshman in college, I've been doing this for a while and my friends were very aware of it. And they kind of planted this seed in my mind of, hey, maybe you should start yourself. And so the first place I looked to was Photoshop. Some people prefer Photoshop, others use Illustrator a lot, but really you're going to need to use one of these tools or some form of handwritten, drawings, graphics, whatever you're most comfortable with to learn to design with. I will say if you're only into this for the money, I'm not going to disrespect the hustle, but you're probably just best off outsourcing a designer and just getting a shop set up quickly and trying to go for paid media and ads. But if you're truly passionate about this like I am and was and are really trying to like make something, make a brand that's meaningful, it just starts by learning to design yourself if you've never had before. Pick up one of these tools and just try and learn a little bit better day by day. For me, I spent roughly a year, probably my whole freshman year, learning in Photoshop primarily before I ever landed on anything that was remotely decent. I'll show you a couple of my very first rough drafts and even samples that I'd made, but they're just honestly just awful, and that's how it's going to be in the beginning. And so that all eventually led to the making of my first product that I was very into, the Dear Planet hoodie. This hoodie specifically was a kind of a take and honestly just a ripoff of a brand that had been popular at the time and still one of my favorite brands, Cactus Plant Flea Market. I thought the hoodie was very interesting though, as it's kind of a letter to the planet. You know, it just has a salutation, dear, comma, planet. And the hoodie had the very childish like puff prints that had been very popular from CPFM at the time. And even before I had released that, hadn't quite gotten as large as to what it is today. You see brands like Broken Planet and others alike that are constantly using this puff print idea, which has probably been overdone quite a bit nowadays, but 4 years ago was still a little more viable. And so with this one product really started the release of my brand Apologetic Letters. After several months and months and months of learning to design and testing samples that just looked awful and designs that weren't good, this was the product that I had gotten good feedback from, and also just I knew the minute I had it in person that I had something. So I had been teasing different products for a while, as I previously stated, and the Dear Planet came about. So I already had a very small social media following on my Apologetic Letters Instagram, probably between 200 to 400 followers tops. I don't believe I had started an emailing marketing list by then. I might have, but probably very few followers. And that was really all I had to create any sort of buzz. And so with my first release, this was completely funded from my reselling that I'd done prior. If you're familiar with the reselling community at all in the sneaker and clothing botting world, I actually sold a bot that I had back then called Wrath.io, which I sold for I think $4,000 to $5,000 and funded my very first drop of hoodies, which I ended up making 64 Dear Planet hoodies. These hoodies came in at probably around $20 to $25 landed a piece. I probably paid close to 2 grand or just under 2 grand for the release. Selling out this first release was obviously the dream and was going to be the most difficult part, but also selling out this first release would mean a lot to me and also just give me social proof that I had something to validate myself a little bit as a designer, but also validate the business itself. And so leading up to the release, I spent most of my time teasing the product on stories. I think I did a couple posts. I probably did a giveaway post. Giveaways are very important when starting your brand, and honestly, just a good way to drive engagement and followers for your brand. And then I would also say, no surprise, paid media. I think paid media was a lot easier back then for anyone that's just now trying to pick it up, and is a lot harder to master today. Even something that I don't spend as much time with, and frankly, try to go heavier on the organic side just because of the way that things have been going. But for that very first release, I sold 5 hoodies on my first day. It was one of the happiest parts of it all, as I was just able to validate the business and myself as a designer and really just create something from scratch and get into the hands of people that I had never met before. And so I vividly remember that my paid media, I was probably spending between $5 to $10 a day, but getting my clicks down to like 5 to 6 cents a click, probably less than that. And I know that clicks traffic to your site is kind of a vanity metric, but I felt it as I was constantly getting sales per day and sold out of that first release within roughly a month. And so that first release was I brought it all together very quickly. I created a Shopify store, which cost like $30 a month to have, the plan or whatever. I created a domain in GoDaddy, which cost me, I think, $20 a month. And I used the free template in Shopify. I don't remember the name of it. To create the look and the feel of the store. Instagram was free, obviously, and I don't believe, like I said, I did any email marketing, or if I did, it was definitely like a free provider that was like fairly cheap. And so that was everything, all my costs going into that first release. And so now where I think I'll be able to provide more value to people that want to start their brand or just curious about how my journey has gone is I want to talk about what's worked and what hasn't. So specifically products that have worked, the products that I've sold the best and the most of. Definitely my Dear Planet hoodies, the Sentiments jackets, the logo card holders, and the Heavenly Orbit sweaters. For any reason, I can't really explain why these products have done as well as I could. Definitely the paid media for, I think, the Dear Planet hoodies and the Heavenly Orbit sweaters was very on point. I had low cost per clicks, I had a good creative, and the products just managed to hit at the right time. But more importantly, even past that, looking at strategies and things that like to learn from what's worked. I definitely think Instagram stories has always been very big for me. In terms of organic posts, my social media on for apologetic letters hasn't always been great, but stories has been a good way to interact with potential customers and just the audience in general. Kind of go one on one, try and have build good conversations, and also it's been where I get the most reach from. I probably get the same reach on there as a post sometimes, just due to the nature of the algorithm and the way things are going. Email marketing has been very big for me. I've built this list solely through my Instagram and building, obviously sending people to the website and then collecting emails there. I will say, not a hack, but one thing that a lot of brands do is they close their site up until it drops, which is something that I implemented more recently. And the more you have your site closed, I would kind of say the better, as it's a very good way for people to look into your site, kind of get a bit of that FOMO and really drive into it and want to collect emails and things of that nature versus what a lot of other brands do where they just have their site open and they have the formal pop-up just like mine does. um, that formal pop-up asking for the email, and people are very less inclined to do so. I think my opt-in on emails for the pop-up is probably less than 1%. I also don't do any added value. A lot of people do put your email in and we'll give you 10% off your first order and whatnot, and that's probably much better converting. But the more you have your site closed and you just have that enter your email here and you can have the site shut down, I promise you that's where you'll see the most email gain. Paid ads is something that I've struggled with, and I think I've kind of just gotten lucky also taking a lot of at bats, and that's what a lot of paid media is just testing and seeing what works and what doesn't work. Like I said in the beginning, I think it was a lot easier and also probably a little less competitive. We're talking like 2020, 2021. Things were just a little easier back then. And so that was a big way for me to gain followers, gain traffic, and overall just grow the brand awareness and get sales even in the beginning. I think that's part of the reason why those earlier products did so well for certain ones was because of the paid media. And I think the best strategy is just to have a really organic plus paid media on top. One thing a lot of people say nowadays for brands to do is to, especially with video content, because video is just so dominant nowadays, is to do a lot of your testing on organic, and then when the organic works, you amplify that with paid media. So you make a TikTok video and it does very well, or you do an IG reel and does very well, then promote that video using paid media to scale it because you already have validation that the creative works, but you didn't have to spend any money testing it. And then lastly, the thing that's worked the most for me as of recent has been TikTok. I have a personal account on TikTok where I have roughly just under 4,000 TikTok followers as of today, which again is like nothing, but at the same time, the videos that have done well for me and the friends I've gained, the connections I've made, and the sales I've gained directly from videos doing well has been pretty game changing in terms of the business and just overall like where I'm trying to drive things. Obviously, I started this YouTube for that very reason as well, to put myself more out there as well as trying to provide value, as I think there's a lot of things that I'm knowledgeable about and can give guidance to people that don't know as much about certain things with fashion in general. But yes, TikTok has been the biggest game changer for me for my business. And then where I really want to grow is on my apologetic letters account. I have a couple hundred followers. I've been making TikToks for the last year and a half, and so I've gotten like very little traction there and kind of need to crack the code. Whereas my personal account, I do a lot of green screening and I just talk about like fashion and things coming up, as well as sometimes I'll plug in my brand or do, photo carousels and whatnot. And that just seems to have worked for me. So I'd really say hitting organic hard and trying so many different things within organic with variety, trying different apps. Like I plan to get into, Twitter and some other things, whatnot. But knowing yourself, if you're good on video, if you just want to do text, whatever that might be, kind of knowing yourself and then trying as much as you can within that space to get something to hit is probably going to be your best road to success. Okay, now let's talk about what hasn't worked. So we could go like very product specific and look at different releases and why they haven't worked. I can name a few. Some of my early ones, including the Care Tee, the Have a Day hat. Most recently, even just as last weekend, I released a very niche product called the Magnus shirt, which didn't do great for a variety of reasons. But I think really going super niche on certain products, because that's what I want to do, allows me, like, I'm happy I have the creative freedom to do that. But at the same time, I have to get sales, and the more niche I go, oftentimes the worse the release has been, for say. Other things that haven't worked for me as much as of recent, definitely got to be paid media. I don't spend enough time there, quite frankly, and I've really tried to move away from it. So when I do use it, I don't really know a whole lot of what I'm doing other than what I've learned from the past. I'm not really doing too many creatives, not doing a lot of testing, not putting a lot of money into it either to really be like testing a larger sample size. So all of that said, paid media has been somewhere where I personally struggle a lot. As I said previously, the TikTok brand account for Apologetic Letters has been somewhere where I just need to be better. I need to be trying more things. I've started doing a lot more of my green screening on there as well and seeing some success there. Trying some carousels, trying some different things. I try to like hop on trends every once in a while, at least like video wise and like copying kind of what's working. And it's just difficult, but that's where I need to see a lot of growth at. And so one of my other major issues is just constantly sampling and never like being a bit of a perfectionist, which is I think a lot of people can be if they really take this seriously and take it to heart. Like for example, I have a couple of products as of recent that I'm on my third and fourth samples on, and I'm still pretty confident I'll need at least another two more on those to be where I want it to be at. I can talk about the melodic denim that I just did recently, or the out of time jacket. Both very excited for those to release, but again, I'm constantly putting these things off because I'm such a perfectionist in certain areas and want to see, I'm very empathetic to the customer and want them to be very satisfied with everything they buy. So I definitely have to make the quality at a certain level, but also the other areas that are big for me is the creative and innovation aspects to everything. So I spend so much time designing things, and I'll make like hundreds of things with only like a very handful actually being something that I want to like produce and put into the world. And then even when I get that idea that I'm like ready to go with, it takes all this time to sample it, and then there's just a lot of time involved. But yeah, in terms of just besides the creative like roadblocking that happens time to time, as I said, just hitting organic harder, I think, is where I need to really grow. I finally did a video for my most recent the Magnus shirt release, which I was very happy with how that turned out. I've also been doing different tactics. Of course, I've been doing the giveaways on most releases, doing lookbooks, which I think are important for customers to understand how things look and how they feel, and overall, just like doing more. Like, kind of sounds like very vague, but like more social media, more email marketing, more designing, like just constantly be like trying to push myself to do better, improve each release piece by piece. I think is where I'm going to get to where I need to go, because the last handful of releases have kind of been on a decline, except for the logo card holder, which has been like a very, very important and good space for the brand. But yeah, that's kind of like what has and hasn't worked. There's a lot more that I could go into, but that's kind of just a brief overview of my brand, Apologetic Letters. Like I said, this is a very big passion project of mine, something that I want to do full time when I'm able to. I definitely don't make enough money doing it as is right now. I have a full time job and do this primarily on the side, but I also take a lot of it to heart, as I see it as an extension of myself as a designer, as a clothing designer, which is like very fun for me. So I spend a lot of time, again, focusing on the creativeness, the innovation, trying to do something different, trying to, just make stuff that I would want to wear. But yeah, that's kind of a little bit about me and my journey so far. I would love to make more videos on upcoming releases and kind of just like document that process, as I think it's can be valuable to others, and also just something I can look back on. But yes, please, if you have any questions or comments or feedback or just anything in general, that would be very helpful to me if you could put that down below. If you could leave a like or subscribe, that would be very cool as well, but no pressure. I'm going to try and pump these out more, at least monthly, but hopefully bi weekly into weekly once I'm able to kind of get this YouTube thing down. But thank you for tuning in if you did today. And yeah, I hope to see you next time. Thanks.